How did you start with the Dreaming of Babylon project altogether?
Um, I guess I started with it a couple of years ago when I began to do more research into like the ecological footprint of the internet and streaming services and the cloud, so to speak, and all that. I was looking for ways to make it explicit in some sort of artistic form. And initially, I thought about making some photographs of this black box in like forests and the lakeside and in these various natural locations. But it didn't really go anywhere until last year in 2021. An opportunity arose because I was invited to do a film project by some friends and colleagues, which eventually didn't happen. But after that, I had a whole bunch of 16 millimeter film, and I had already rented the equipment, and I had all this on my hands already. So I figured that I might as well try and do this server rack project with the film.
Could you describe the thematic idea of the film?
I guess the central theme of it is basically this idea of the materiality of data. I was kind of thinking about this combination of words, digital ruins. In ancient Greece, people had agoras, these places where people gathered to discuss politics and do theater and religious rites and trade and all of that. And nowadays we can go there and see these marble pillars and all of the stones that are left there. It's centuries and thousands of years later, and we can still kind of, so to speak, touch it, even though they don't really allow you to do it in most cases. But the internet is basically now the same thing as the agora used to be for people. Its function is kind of similar. You go there to buy stuff and to talk to other people, and all of that is sort of supplanted by the internet, what the agora used to be, or in Roman cases or other ancient civilizations cases, whatever they would call it. But this has now been replaced by the internet. So I was trying to imagine what that would look like later on, maybe in some decades or centuries. And to take it a bit further, there's this post-humanist idea behind it, that I was trying to film in locations that would give a hint that all of the people, all humans have sort of disappeared. And perhaps they've actually disappeared into these server racks or these black boxes, because there's this transhumanist idea that perhaps people could achieve immortality by uploading their consciousness into perhaps like a computer or transform it into digital data. And it's a very extreme notion and poses many questions about what consciousness is actually, and can it be transposed into this digital form. But I was kind of trying to play around with this fantasy of people sort of escaping into their own technological makings and leaving the world be as it is, to sort of start growing and spinning and all that around these black boxes again.
Could you elaborate how the filming process took place? For example, the choice of scenes, locations, etc.
Basically, what we did was we just went location scouting, and I took along a film, photo camera, and some some 35mm film to actually photograph them in some sort of an analog form to get the feeling of how these places would really look like. Locations with a abandoned feel to them. I guess this is most obvious in the case of the aqueduct, or the sort of concrete bridge you see at the end of the movie across this river, which is actually parts of a former hydroelectric plant. And then I have a couple of quarries in there as well. And yeah, we got this server rack from Telia Aktiaselts, the telecommunications provider. They would have thrown it away anyway, and actually would have had to pay for like the garbage disposal of it. So they just gave it to us, and it was originally gray, and we painted it over, and then removed some of the things in there because it weighs I think around like 200 kilograms or something, or maybe a bit less eventually. It was 2 meters high and approximately 1 meter wide, and the depth was also like 1 meter. So you could fit a person very nicely inside there. And a quite like big question at first was how we were actually going to move this thing around, and how were we going to get it up on hills and move it around in sand, and get it into a river. Then eventually we discovered that you can just take some of the stuff out. So you could have the outside box, and then inside you had this bunch of wires connected to switching boxes, as they call it. And this alone weighed around, I guess, 70 or maybe 100 kilos. So we moved around these two pieces separately. We had this big plate of spaghetti, as we kind of called it, and then this box which we just moved. And right now we're actually, the box is, we're using it as a closet or like a cabinet in Kino Sõprus in Tallinn. To store away old film reels and the vacuum cleaner and some other stuff that we have lying around in the projection room there. So it's now utilized.
How was it to work with exhibition in a website format?
I think in addition to this materiality of data idea, the whole thing about showing it online brings in this notion of distraction, that if you have this muted kind of slow analog film on a computer or whatever device that you use to get both stuff done and get your entertainment from, I think this sort of has a aura of distraction around it. I liked kind of, at least conceptually, working around this idea of someone looking at this thing in a river or in a forest or wherever, which, I mean, hypothetically could be like a server rack that would be hosting their own, the very content that they're looking at, but then becoming distracted from it. Then becoming distracted from it by their own devices, and I also kind of found it funny that for me this whole process of filming it in analog and to eventually have the film compressed into this quite low bandwidth, low bitrate file that would be able to stream and play back very fast on the site. There's this like nice absurdity to it that I kind of enjoyed, and especially the way that the noise that is sort of, so to speak, natural in the film itself, all of this like film grain and stuff, the way it kind of mixed in with compression, the pixelation that comes with compressing the digital file itself. So these things kind of like started to work in some sort of weird noise harmony, I guess. I like that.
Could you explain the terms in your bio? Void enthusiast and digital trash.
Digital trash is quite. It's quite explicitly connected to this idea of digital ruins that I was talking about before. The way I've heard it is that 80% of data that's collected is actually never touched again after like 2 months of its recording or collection. So there's this huge pile of stuff, this like digital stuff that's just like lying around on hard disks or whatever format. And again, I'm sort of often wondering about or trying to imagine it in the form of like a garbage dump or something like that, where you have just not physical stuff but data actually. And in a way, I guess because the garbage dumps of thousands of years ago in many ways provide like a nice location for discovery, I guess, at least you could think of this like that. And I guess the question of where you draw the line between trash and ruins is sort of a matter of taste. Yeah. And void enthusiast, it's my theory is that all of this technological progress that the West is making and Western philosophy is sort of actually going in the same direction as Eastern philosophers have proposed for a long time, which is kind of becoming nothingness. Perhaps its form could be actually uploading your consciousness into a machine or something like that. I'm kind of like wondering about that. But the idea of the void or like nothingness or the gap comes from this Taoistic idea that a vessel, like a bowl or a jug or whatever, isn't defined by the liquid it holds or whatever it holds, so much as it's defined by its emptiness. So that's like a room for a potential for something to happen. So this is the sense that I'm interested in gaps or like emptiness, is that it holds some kind of a promise for something else, I guess. Yeah.
What are you working on now?
Right now I am continuing work on my doctoral thesis at the Estonian Academy of Arts, which this film is also related to, but the overall interest of the research is about quantifying sleep and what that sort of means. How is a subject, be it a capitalist subject or a digital subject, how is this subject constructed in the sense of like measuring the quality of their sleep in data?